Hey guys, it's Justin here, and if you've been following along with our Jeep Wrangler Rubicon project, you'll know that we're building a Jeep that can handle some serious off-roading without losing any of its day-to-day practicality. So selecting a suspension system that can balance both of these roles is really difficult. So we hit up the guys over at Rock Krawler and they said their ultimate adventure system is just what we need. For starters, it'll lift the Jeep 3.5 inches, which Rock Krawler says is enough to fit a 40-inch tire. But we're not going that extreme yet. Instead, we're bolting up a set of 17-inch KMC Mesa Candy Red wheels wrapped in 35-inch Maxxis Razor MTs. We went with 35s because they deliver the perfect blend of upgraded off-road performance we're looking for, and we won't need to re-gear right away, given our Rubicon already has 410 gears installed. This will be a long-term project for us, so keep an eye out in the future for possible 40s and an appropriate axle upgrade. Yet, fitting big tires isn't the most important feature of the Rock Krawler system. More importantly, it's adjustable. So we'll be able to properly tune the Wrangler's suspension geometry to avoid binding, while achieving proper caster and pinion angle as well. Add in the fact that the joints are also service-free, meaning you'll spend less time trying to maintain them and more time in the trail. The coils in the Rock Krawler kit are also worth talking about. Instead of a stock linear rate spring, these triple rate coils are the magic behind the suspension system's smooth on and off-road performance. And anybody who's worked on these Wranglers knows that there's a slight bit of spring bow built into the stock setup. Rock Krawler addresses that by including correction pads as well. This kit includes pretty much everything you need to finish the install, and it's completely bolt-on. So you can do a suspension upgrade like this in your own driveway with basic hand tools in just a few hours. Want to see how? Let's walk through the step-by-step install. So before we get started with our install, we're going to go ahead and adjust our control arms to the proper lengths recommended by Rock Krawler. We're going to start with the front upper control arms, which have a recommended length of 20 inches and 9/16. We're going to measure our number by finding the distance between eye to eye. Snug our jam nut up, and it's ready for install. Now, Rock Krawler has a really great video on the importance of jam nuts and being torqued properly. We're gonna go ahead and link that in the description so you guys can give it a watch. So that one's done, now we're gonna move on to the others. Go ahead and snug that up, and we'll come back and torque these when they're on the vehicle. With our front uppers done, now we're gonna move on to the rear upper control arms. And these have a recommended length of 17 and 5/8 inches. They're just about at 17 and a half, so we only have to spin them out a little bit. It's just about 17 and 5/8, so go ahead and snug the jam nut up and move on to the next one. Last but not least, let's go ahead and adjust our front track bar. Now the recommended length on this is 34 inches and 5/16. Spin our jam nut, snug it up, and she's good to go. So we got our Jeep up in the air and we got our front axle supported, and now we're gonna start ripping off some stock parts. So the shocks and sway bar links need to come off first. Be sure to hold on to your stock hardware as we're going to be reusing it. With the shocks removed, now it's time to remove our front sway bar links. Now remove the other sway bar link. So you can go ahead and discard your front sway bar links because we'll be moving the stock back links up to the front and then replacing the rears with an extended set. Now, remove the factory brake line holds from the stock lower control arms. Go ahead and tuck this stock brake line out of the way and go ahead and take this central disconnect wire and pull it out. We're going to do the same thing on this side. Tuck this out of the way. Pull the locker wire out. And then we're going to pull this factory brake line hold as well. Now go ahead and remove the factory track bar. To make it a little bit easier to get our springs out, we're going to go ahead and remove the factory drag link as well. We're just going to go ahead and tuck this out of the way. With the factory drag link removed, now we can go ahead and lower our axle down and remove our coil springs. So with our coil springs removed, we're going to go ahead and remove the spring pillows and replace them with the ones that Rock Krawler provided. We're also going to go ahead and drill the mount here to 1/2 inch so we can put the stackable bump stop kit on from Rock Krawler. Now with this side done, let's move on to the other side. With the bump stops installed, now it's time to install some control arms. Now we're going to go ahead and pull off the factory heat shields off the upper control arms. Make sure to hold on to these because we'll be reinstalling them later. Now let's get this first control arm installed. So we went ahead and removed the other upper control arm as well, so we can pivot the axle to get the bolt through. We're just going to snug these up and then come back and torque them later. Same with the other side, we're just gonna snug these up and then come back and torque them later. With our upper control arm swapped, now it's time to swap our lowers. Again, we're just gonna snug these up and then come back and torque them. We had a little bit of difficulty getting our springs installed. So we went ahead and pulled our bump stops back off. Then we were able to get the spring in and then reinstalled the bump stop. So with the coil springs in, we went ahead and reattached our track bar and got that thing snugged up. We're gonna come back and torque it. With that done, now we need to attach our drag link. We're gonna go ahead and just snug this up and then come back and torque it. Now you're gonna wanna install your sway bar links. As we stated before, we're gonna reuse the rears up front. Now let's get our front shocks installed. With everything installed, we're gonna go ahead and start torquing stuff. And we're gonna start with our upper control arms. And we're gonna torque these to the manufacturer's recommended spec. With the upper control arms torqued, now let's move on to the lowers. With the lower control arms done, now we're going to move on to the drag link. Next up are the shocks. With everything torqued, now we're going to go ahead and plug in our central axle disconnect and our locker. Rock Krawler recommends that you remove these brackets because they're no longer needed. So we're going to grab 2 pairs of channel locks and peel it off. Now we're gonna start on our rear lift. And we're gonna start by removing the rear shocks. And we need to take these covers off first to get to the bolts. With the rear shocks removed, now it's time to reroute the e-brake cables. So we're gonna disconnect them and move their location. Before we reroute the e-brake cables, we're gonna disconnect the e-locker too. Go ahead and disconnect your rear sway bar mounts, and we're gonna move these to the front and install new ones on the back. Now lower down your axle and remove your coil springs. Now go ahead and remove your track bar. Now it's time to get our track bar mount installed. Now remove the lower control arms and get the new ones installed. With our control arms installed and our axle lowered, now we're going to slip our spring into place. With our coil springs installed, now we're going to reattach our track bar. Before we install our bump stops, we need to torque our upper control arms. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And we're just going to torque these to the manufacturer's recommended spec. With the uppers torqued to spec, now we're going to torque the lowers. Now you're going to want to torque the track bar mount. You're going to want to torque these two bolts to the OEM specification, and then this U-bolt to the foot poundage specified in the Rock Krawler instructions. Let's go ahead and get the bump stop mounts installed. Now it's time to install our new Rock Krawler shocks, and we're going to reuse our factory hardware for this. We're going to get these snugged up and then torqued to factory spec. Now you're going to want to install your extended sway bar mounts on the rear. We got this one on already, let's get it snugged up. So we're almost finished up with our rear lift install. All we need to do is plug the locker back in and then install the e-brake cables. And with that, our rear lift install is done. And there you have it, a 3.5-inch lift that'll provide some valuable ground clearance to help this Jeep traverse some rugged terrain, yet still get you to work and pick up the kids from school in comfort. The Rock Krawler suspension system is a truly best of both worlds setup. Now that the lift and tires are done, we're going to address some other areas of this Jeep in some upcoming episodes. Some areas that we're going to touch in are exterior armor, some overlanding accessories, and even some engine enhancements. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Summit Racing YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of the action. Be sure to punch that notification bell too. I'm Justin with Summit Racing. Thanks for watching.